manipulation generally has a pretty negative context behind it, for good reason. I think we tend to think of maybe a relationship where one side is manipulating the other into believing that something's real that isn't really happening in the first place. But within filmmaking, that's kind of the whole point.
You don't need me. Makes me want more. Makes me want to more. She gone. Oh God, release me. I've never felt this kind of hold. Never felt this kind of hold before.
The best filmmakers and cinematographers in the world are masters at manipulating you into believing that what you're seeing on screen is actually happening. But the thing that makes it a positive experience is that the audience also wants to be manipulated. If you go to see Dune, you want to believe at least a little bit that Paul Atreides is actually riding on a sandworm. The most miserable experience you could have is to just sit in a theater in your logical, boring, practical brain, not believing at all anything that you're seeing on screen. To me, that's one of the most special aspects of filmmaking. It's just this ability to create a world that's surreal and fantastic, even if it's just capturing mundane moments. That was kind of the goal with this recent short film I just made. I wanted to take ordinary, normal moments from my everyday life, but craft them in a way that was a bit more surreal, a bit more magical, but still believable. So I'm just gonna break down some of the shots from these films, some of my favorite ones, and how I achieved them. Okay. So starting off just with this opening shot, this is the perfect example of what I'm talking about, because obviously the goal here is to make the viewer believe that I am in distress, that I'm being held underwater, not having a good time. But obviously the reality could not be further from that. So to get this shot, I just found this cheap 10-gallon aquarium, propped it up on a couple of chairs, and then had a single Zhiyun M20 light lighting the side of the aquarium. But I think the interesting thing to talk about with this shot is I used two different lighting setups. For the shot where I'm in distress, I put the light on top of the aquarium so that it was top lighting my face, had my face way darker, a bit more mysterious, and a bit more stressful. Whereas when I had the shot of me calmly underwater, I moved the light to the side so that you could see more of my face, and it really just conveyed more of a peaceful feeling. Something as simple as that can really change the tone or the feeling that you're creating. And then immediately following that shot, when I wake up from the nightmare, is just the same framing of me laying in my bed with some hard lighting on my face, which I guess since I have learned everything from YouTube, I've kind of been afraid of hard light up to this point. I've always thought that you needed diffusion or a softbox of some sort at all times. And I finally played around with hard light in this video, and it's extremely useful. So this is just a single X60 outside of the room, shining through the doorway to give some hard light that gives the feeling that this is morning daylight coming through a window, something to that effect, and then framed it up the same as the aquarium shot. And then sticking to the same theme, all of these toaster shots were done with hard light from a single X60 with a reflector on it. And that hard lighting really creates these cool shadows and angles that are similar to what you would see early in the morning when the sun is shining through the window. When the reality is these shots were all filmed in the middle of the day on a really cloudy day. So next shot is also a first for me. It's the first time I've tried this technique where I just had a single X60 directly above me, shining hard light directly down onto the table, and I hung some flags on the side of it to kind of shape that light into a single point on the table. And that way that hard light was going to reflect off the table and light me and the rest of the scene, which An unintended effect of this setup is that the steam from the cup of coffee is just so much more visible from that overhead lighting. I actually was wearing a white shirt when I first filmed this, and then when I saw the shot, I realized I needed to change to a black shirt because it helped to really accent the steam coming off of that cup of coffee. So next scene I'll cover is these skateboard setup shots, which hopefully if I succeeded in my goal, these felt like these were early in the morning or middle of the day when the sun is blasting through the window, but these were filmed in the late hours of the night, probably between like 2 and 4 a.m. that I was getting these shots. But staying on theme, had a single hard light source outside, this time using the G200 to have a little more powerful light source shining in from outside with a reflector. But then the thing I want to talk about with this scene is the idea of color contrast, because that outside light I had set to 2700 Kelvin, so it was a super warm light source. And then inside the garage, up in the rafters, I had an X60 set to 6500 Kelvin, so it was a much cooler light source. But then I set my camera white balance to 4400 Kelvin so that it was in between these two extreme color temperatures, which then in this scene gives this very natural contrast of the warm orange light coming through the window to the blue cool light that you see kind of filling the shadows, which is so satisfying to me because this is a look that we try so hard to be able to just create in color grading and in post. But as with most things, if you're able to create it while you're filming, it's gonna look so much better than just doing it in post. And also, gotta shout out the $30 fog machine for these shots because, man, fog machines just make everything better. I have these shots of the camera mounted to the skateboard, which I'm happy with, but it's kind of funny because initially my idea was to strap my camera to my arm so that I could get this POV shot of the razor blade cutting the grip tape off of my board. So I like ace bandaged my camera to my arm, thinking it would be this sick shot of the razor, and it just came out looking pretty dumb. And then I thought I was a genius when I realized that I could just strap the camera to the board, only to find out like a couple days later, I went on Instagram Reels and saw probably 4 or 5 different reels of people doing the exact same thing. So turns out it wasn't really that genius of an idea. I'm just another guy making videos, strapping my camera to my skateboard. Next is this laundry scene, which was so fun. Required some interesting setup. Obviously the camera is inside the dryer. I friction armed it to everything I possibly could inside the dryer to keep it stable, and then placed a single M20 inside the dryer, which was so easy because it just magnets onto the surface and has these barn doors to be able to shape the light how I wanted, which was perfect for this because I needed to cover the front of the light so that it wouldn't reflect in the door of the dryer but still fill the rest of the dryer. So that was the light inside. And then outside the dryer, on one side of me, I just had a single X60 set to daylight temperature shining through the doorway. And then on the other side of me, put an X60 on the counter with a battery pack, made it blue, popped the diffuser on that it comes with, and then ended up with this really cool contrast of colors in the scene. I may as well just take this opportunity to add in my little sponsored plug here, but these lights are just so versatile, and this scene is a perfect example of it. On one side of me, you have the X60 on a C-stand with a power supply and on a massive softbox, kind of a stereotypical YouTube light setup. But then on the other side of me, the exact same light is just strapped to a battery pack with a tiny little globe diffuser on it, super portable, super easy to set anywhere. So that right there is exactly why these lights are such a joy to work with. They're truly just so capable of any different need I had and any different scenario that I put them in.
And then last crucial step, you gotta set the dryer to air fluff. I guess technically you'd probably be fine if you had the heat on, as long as your camera wasn't in there for too long, but don't.
Next were these skateboard POV shots, which These shots are kind of just the further evolution of a recent shot I got on my bicycle. And so these shots I just got with a GoPro Hero 6 and an ND filter and a single friction arm. Obviously they're super jittery and grainy and messy, and I love it. It just makes it feel extra chaotic and hectic and helps it feel the energy and chaos of skateboarding.
And then of course, we gotta finish with that full circle ending where the nightmare actually becomes reality. Or maybe the nightmare was just reality all along. I don't know.